Welcome to the church, volume 2. Exclusive 213. Got my nephew Nate Dogg in the house. Nate Dogg, holla at him, where you at?
Riding in my car.
Coachability, who's it for, what is it, and more specifically, how does it incorporate into a well-rounded CrossFit program? Coachability, in short, is the ability to be coached. I think it does have a two-way street there between coach to athlete and athlete to coach. It's not always a one-way street of hierarchical order where the coach demands and athlete must always do. Key traits of a coachable athlete: open-mindedness, the willingness to learn and adapt and take on new information and concept. A growth mindset, seeing failures not necessarily as setbacks, but as chances to improve, learn and move forward from those mistakes. Discipline and consistency, following the instructor, doing the 1%ers, listening to the brief, understanding the stimulus, understanding the intention, and striving for perfection according to that, more specifically. Respect for the coach and respect for others around them. So trusting in the coach, trusting in the processes, and respectful to the gear, the environment, the other people that are working out. And today we're going to dive through some examples of how that is incorporated not only as an individual doing CrossFit, maybe perhaps in your own setting, or as an individual within a group setting, specifically in a gym. Coachability in one-on-one settings. So this is for somebody who is doing their own programming, maybe it's tailored and specific programming that could be on site with the coach in real time and or an online relationship or something like that. This stems off for more than just CrossFit setting. So there is the athlete or the elite athlete in whatever sport that may be. I think this is really good crossover and parallel between both worlds of CrossFit, which is used as a training methodology and tool for other sports, but then also for sports itself. In a one-on-one setting, generally you are going to get the program designed specifically for you, and it might be sports, well, it should be sports specific. 2, you will get constant feedback, manipulation to programming, and the feedback around movement review and things like that. How you respond is absolutely critical to that. Often you'll see athletes almost with the curse of striving for greatness can be their undoing at the same time. It's a blessing and a curse in the same breath. What I mean for that is going 100% all the time isn't necessarily the best pathway forward. And many times, even in my experience as a coach, delivering that message of, hey, slow down in this specific something, can be overlooked as if I'm not doing enough. You know, from the athlete's perspective, I need to go hard on that moment because I need to work the hardest and the fastest and the longest in order to be the best in my craft. It's not such a simple picture like that. If it might be, you might need to work hard on something slow. It might be a recovery. Can you work hard on being disciplined in an hour, rolling out on the floor, or staying in some recovery boots, or getting into an ice bath, sauna, something like that? It's not always, can I just run maximal velocity all times? Can I do 1 hour weight training at all times? There are just many different pathways forward. And in a one-on-one setting, the athlete specifically needs to have a great understanding of what that feedback is. If a coach is coming up to you and removing weight off of your barbell, it's not because they don't want you to achieve something. You have to remember that the coach is on your team. And that's often a huge misconception from an athlete or a fitness practitioner. If a coach is removing them or regressing them during a workout, you're not perhaps meeting the desired movement standard, the safety of the movement, the intended stimulus of the workout, the adaptation that we're trying to withdraw from the workout. So the coach is more or less putting you in line with those things, not because they don't want to see you PR today. It's mainly because of those other areas that were just mentioned. So that, as an athlete, you need to have that in the back of your mind. As a coach, obviously on the other side of the coin, it's a great tool to understand that often an athlete is just thinking that. They're not thinking, oh, you don't want me to succeed as such. They just don't have an awareness of your perspective at times. So addressing that communication point is crucial, just as much as it is receiving that. Coachability in a sports context, especially in a group environment, is often, and I would almost refer this to like a schooling system, where you tend to learn at the speed of the slowest learner within a group. Now, as a coach, it's very, very important to understand that, hey, I have different movers and users within this group. It might go from this end of the spectrum being 1 out of 10, for positive awareness, understanding, movement patterns and abilities, to 10 out of 10. And you might have all ranges of that within your group. How can you best control and understand the narrative of the group to make sure that we're all moving forward? One, not singling someone else out for what they can't do and putting them in front of the group and exposing that. And two, making sure that the top end of the group is still being facilitated for their stimulation and they're still moving forward and or being heard and felt within the class as well, or the sports training group environment. So that's such a personalized tool per group. Every group is different. Every group is going to have different abilities, and every day that's a changing dynamic, especially in the sport of CrossFit, where we have such a broad range of modalities in which we train under. Gymnastics, weightlifting, cardiovascular, and someone who might be good today might not be so well equipped tomorrow. And I guess that's the beauty and the struggle of it all, is it's not who is the best at any one thing, but who's kind of not bad at anything is what wins the race, so to speak. But the fact of the matter is such an ever-changing picture that you as the coach need to start packing in all these tools and experiences and moments to understand about how you can address that. One of the tools, for me specifically, I don't like to single out the slowest learner in the room, but how can I also make them feel comfortable and not inadequate, that they aren't enough, because that's never an angle or picture of what we're coming from, but it can definitely be a feeling from that person specifically, and even more so if they isolate themselves. We need to understand where wins are and stack small wins, and it's only about, hey, can I get you to progress better than what you are or what you've walked in as today, rather than how can I get you to lift what Matt Fraser is right now. There's a big difference in the levels on how you get there. And in a CrossFit setting, especially in a group environment or class environment, now look, I don't expect everyday users just to go home and study up and learn all these terminologies and things like that. But there definitely are going to be slower paced learners as opposed to your faster paced learners. And is it fair, for example, that we sit a 10-year veteran of CrossFit in a class setting, and just really explaining the minutiae, especially if your warm-ups, your briefing is all structured the same every day. It might be 15 minutes of time out of your 1 hour window, which isn't so needed for them specifically. Like, yeah, it's always good to tap in the basics. You can't overlook them, but is at a point in time where you can overdo it, and we could just lose interest, and maybe that member starts thinking that they get more bang for their buck if they start doing things by themselves or elsewhere. And that comes down to the slowest pace of the room, right? And just having an awareness or finger on the pulse of that. Maybe there's a case and element, and again, this is why it's so tricky and specific to your group, but you might send some off. All right, you guys know what you're doing. I'm happy for you to go spend this next 4 or 5 minutes just to prepare, and I'll walk around when I can. But for you three, you stay here, and we'll just go over this a little bit more in depth, and don't feel out of your depth as well. So I'm not holding you guys up for their pace, but I'm also not making you feel like you're a nuisance or you're a hindrance to the development of this room and session. And I definitely don't want you to feel uncomfortable or feel like a burden. Nothing like that. At all times, you should be able to ask questions and ask them competently, confidently, and get the appropriate responses from the coach as well. I do think that it's important, to have a little bit of awareness as an individual of, can I figure things out for myself, or am I constantly asking the same questions every day? And yeah, there might be a running joke inside the coaching section of, same old person going to do this thing again, and you're paying $1 to ask the same question. So there is some ownership of the individual to kind of have a grasp of, am I applying the knowledge? Am I trying to gain the understanding, and how am I doing so? Or how can I get better at that, and speak with your coaches about it. Differences between local gym groups and elite team sports. I mean, there's from face value, what I've noticed, and I would say even in CrossFit, right up until the CrossFit Games, it's not a paid career as such. It is for the top 1%. You get a lot through sponsorship, you get prize money for winning, but generally 99% of people that are going through this aren't getting paid to do this on a daily basis. High elite level sports, you do get paid in many different levels. I'll take rugby for an example. You know, being here in New Zealand, it's our nation's sport. You have the All Blacks, top tier. Below that, Super Rugby. You've got 5 franchises within the country, and then below that you have the national championship, which you have provincials from everyone in the country. So you've got 1,000 odd players in the country getting paid. Not only that, you have opportunities at a level below that to still get somewhat paid and looked after throughout the week, and opportunities. There's also more players than that within the structure of New Zealand that go out and get paid elsewhere around the world. And there's so many different levels and tiers within that. Now, in sports, you, to a degree, you have to be more coachable because that's your lifeline. That's how you're making your money. I've experienced, even in CrossFit alone, that because you're not making money off of it, you know, you tend to not have to care so much about how you're treating the environment around you as much. And you think that, I've seen it many times, that it's often been a problem from the coach to the athlete, and there's no self-reflection or look in the mirror first. And I think that's important, that it goes both ways. And if you're a coach out there that's trying to navigate and handle these things, just have some perspective on that. It's not somebody's lifeline, so the care factor for how they're treating others might not be so much the way that you see it, and you spending more time on the outside looking in at the situation. And I mean, I guess that's your job. That's how you're making your money, is how you treat these people and how you create an environment and how they feel within the environment and how they respect each other, and the communication lines between you and the group, and you and individual members within the group, and you within little pods of communities within the group. There's all of those things, and so it's something that you look at often, but maybe it's not looked at from the other side of the coin, and especially from an athlete or an aspiring athlete. So on the coachability front, in CrossFit specifically, I think as an athlete, you know, just really understand that there is more than you. That open up into an equation, and the difference of elite level sports, in my opinion, is just it's the paycheck week to week. And you know, in CrossFit, it's so unfortunate because we put the same amount of work in, if not more, than a professional athlete getting paid, but you're doing it out of the love of your heart and hopes of living a lifestyle, and potentially getting to that foreign land where you can get reciprocated for your work as well. Signs of great coachability: athletes that are actively seeking and applying feedback, drilling it down, and strong communication with the coaches and fellow athletes. And in today's modern environment, we know that, you know, the rising tide raises all ships, and that should be our framework, where I wish the success of my partners and peers around me just as much as myself, because that in turn is going to help me get to that foreign land as well. And if and when you do, you'll have the support and happiness from your peers around you, rather than maybe a little bit of jealousy or underlying tones of good work, but not your biggest campaigner or supporter in this situation. So how you treat people along the way is so important. Specific examples in CrossFit, you know, just maintaining good form under fatigue, specifically to your coach and in a group setting. Your relationships with your coaches, making sure that the communication lines are there, and just being open to broad conversations and healthy criticism. And criticism might be accountability. You know, sometimes you just got to take that on the chin, turn up on time, be respectful, and just do the work. Signs of poor coachability: I guess resistance to feedback, and definitely not applying it, or even seeking out feedback and just disregarding it. I would say put it in the category of an analogy of, often you see people just in general life with an injury, And you say, oh, what are you doing about that? Well, I'm going to physio. I go to physio once or twice a week, and they go to physio and they hope to get a little massage or rub and maybe get it taped up. And what the physio is there for is they're there to teach you and diagnose the issue. They're there to then provide you with the rehabilitation methods and then the prehabilitation methods and maybe some strength metrics thereafter. But it's basically going there to equip you with the tools to do your homework outside of that building. But often you're only doing the work when you get to that building and you think that that's going to recover you or replenish your inability to do something. It's much more than that. I think that that's such a disrespectful way to think of it, and not even just to the coach or the support team there, but to yourself. If you really want to do something and you really want to get better at something, I think that you need to apply yourself, and then specifically if you're seeking out information of others around you who you value, then don't let their help go to waste either. I mean, highest on the charts here of poor traits and behaviors and coachability would definitely be negative attitudes. We speak about it a lot. You know, if you're trying to bake a beautiful cake and it takes 20 ingredients and you've got 19 great ingredients and you put in one bad egg, you get a bad cake. And it's the same as a group training environment. In sports, you call it locker room cancer. It could be the best player on the team, but if it's not uplifting the rest of us, then it might not be the best for cohesion or for the development of the group. So that's such an important factor, and I think that this is something that we can check ourselves. And we often say, check the ego at the door, check the attitude at the door, something like that. And like, look, if you really are going through something, bring it up, of course, with the trusted people that can help you in that space. But your answers might not be within the gym. And I just think that it's just disrespectful for us to allow that to spill over into the others that are within that environmental context as well. What coaches can do to improve their coachability or their enhancing of coachability is just creating a great environment of trust and respect. I think that comes down with good, clear communication, being well presented, building rapport with your community and your members / clientele. I think it's super important. Developing concise and effective feedback with the right manner, you know, having enough empathy, enough tough love when it's appropriate, and just finding the balance of those things, and just remembering that not every person is the same. You could probably categorize archetypes of people, but somebody likes chili, somebody likes teriyaki, somebody likes sweet and sour, somebody likes plain salt. And they may not like the other thing. It doesn't mean that we can't cater to all of those things and have to have a little bit of understanding of that there are people who enjoy those other things as well. So I think that's super important, just to be as malleable and as informative or understanding for different types of archetypes as possible. And adjusting your coaching techniques along the way. Don't be afraid to jump off your rock. You know, there's been times in my coaching career where I have thought a certain way on a certain squat pattern or a certain structure or a lift, or this was my cue, this is my ethos, and then probably came to a juncture where there was more information and I actually seen a better developmental pathway of a certain concept, and reluctant to jump straight onto it, but then allowing a time to be like, no, actually, you know what, that is a better pathway than what I currently have. There's more information than what I had before. Don't be afraid to change my line. And the same thing happens again if something else comes in. We call it the black swan. If it's a piece of information that I don't currently have and it changes the dynamic of the current situation, accept it, filter it through, digest it for what it is, and potentially move off on that. And I think that just being okay that you may have the right answer right now, but it might not be the right answer 6 months time, 12 months time, 10 years time, and being okay that you may have to maneuver with that time and that information. Final thoughts and summary. Just a recap on good coachability. It goes both ways. It's a two-way street. Having good, clear communication, respect, good application to feedback, and a great attitude, and especially in an environment with other people. And from a coach, just understanding your group, your individual, tailoring things that are specific to them. Consistently look for development and adding tools to the belt of how you manage and engage with people in different situations. You kind of can't go wrong. It's an ever-changing landscape, and I think that if you, I guess, for lack of a better term, treat the jersey as if you weren't going to wear it forever, and you look after it while you have it. That type of mindset. I think you can't go wrong in that aspect.